starting.
Yeah?
I think. Oh, we wait 333.
It is 333.
Perfect.
We start now. Yes.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about sacred sexuality. I think it's such a important aspect to dive deeper into on the awakening process, on the spiritual, not just spiritual, awakening at all levels. The process, yeah, I think that there is a lot of assumptions or misunderstandings or wasted potential, especially in relation to sexuality. So I'd love to talk about it and share about my journey and what I've discovered and what I believe in and how I think sexuality, sacred sexuality, is going to help create a new world, a new reality, a new humanity, living in a completely different state of consciousness. Yeah, so that's how my spiritual journey started 21 years ago, I believe. Yes, 21 years ago. I stumbled upon this book of Taoist sexuality from Mantak Chia, and he was talking about cultivating the male sexual energy, and that was super interesting. I was I was very curious, and it was resonating. I felt, yes, there is wisdom to that. It makes sense that sexuality is such a powerful portal, and that there is a reservoir of energy that I can tap into to open up some new horizons within myself. So I really believed in that, and I tried because it's very practical. It's not based on beliefs and it's not mind based. It's obviously body based. So you need to reprogram the way that our bodies are programmed to be able to actually explore, do this exploration. And for a man, it's especially the case where the programming is such that the energy dissipates all the time. So there was a huge part of this book which was about, okay, how do you reprogram the male body to stop dissipating the sexual charge? And yeah, I learned, I practiced, and I realized, okay, this is these parts within my body, within my mind, that are making the energy dissipate. So because I made this decision to cultivate my sexual energy and to change the patterns of the sexual energy as it usually flows in a body, in a male body, I was able to have a life and a spiritual experience and inner exploration that has been extremely rich, and not just internally but externally too, to have incredible state of fulfillment, bliss, love, abundance, celebration in many different ways. And yeah, I want to empower others to have the same, and to harness the power of the sexual energy, and the necessity of reprogramming how we relate to the sexual energy, so that it becomes fully a part of our wholeness, natural part of our wholeness, and it's amplifying all the other parts of our being. It's amplifying our willpower, it's amplifying our heart, it's amplifying our creativity, it's amplifying our subtle perceptions of all our subtle bodies, our emotional body, our energy body, our mind. Everything comes into a different light thanks to the sexual energy. So it started for me a long time ago. I've been playing with it a lot. It's been a fundamental, central, core dimension of my awakening, expanding process. And yeah, let's keep exploring that together. And Awake is destined to become a platform for this work as well, for this exploration, for this reprogramming, empowering men and women to make their sexuality the true engine that it's supposed to be. So shifting from having a sexuality that dissipates the life force to a sexuality that actually generates. It generates more. It generates life force. It expands the life force into new dimensions, new horizons, internally and externally. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So, what does it? How would you explain sacred? You know, because sexuality, people, they have some perception of what it means in a real life, just two people connecting together. And what does it mean really sacred?
Sacred refers to an understanding, for me at least, an understanding and an intention of using sexuality for an inner exploration, for an inner expansion. So wanting to bring more light on self, exploring self, revealing self, and not just repeating a pattern that's comfortable, that's easy, that's been repeating for lifetimes and lifetimes, that's just part of the usual program. Is sacred is like, okay, there is a program, how can I look at this program from a higher perspective? How can I tweak this program so that I'm actually now exploring a new potential? So yeah, it's recognizing that sexuality is the root of life, of at least life in this dimension, in these bodies. We all come from this portal. Every being comes from this portal, so there is huge energy in that. It is the life force. It is the life force in a specific, very grounded way. So to honor, to wanting to honor, wanting to understand, oh, okay, it's such a powerful energy. What is the way to honor this energy in the highest way? To honor it and to lead it to its highest fulfillment, its highest potential. You know, some people might believe that having a baby is the highest fulfillment of the sexual energy, the fulfillment of its highest potential. And then there are other perspectives where actually there are higher fulfillments reached by the sexual energy when it's turned inwards and nourishes our higher centers of consciousness. So freeing our mind, freeing our hearts, and settling into a higher state of being is a very elevated way to honor our sexual energy, right? To make it a vehicle to get there in a sustainable way, not just to get there into bliss and then being pulled back down by the reality of a sexual energy that's still disconnected from the bliss, but truly a sexual energy that's fully reconnected to the higher centers, to love, compassion, joy, celebration, where these intense sexual physical sensations just moves in an orgasmic wave up through the body and activates the love, activates the joy, activates the connectedness to nature, to the universe, to everything through love, right? And then activates creativity, etc. So sacredness is like, okay, how do I use the energy for its highest fulfillment? Not in the fulfillment that is commonly known, but in a different way, in a higher way, in a way that reveals things about myself that I was not aware of, parts of my being that were asleep and that now have an opportunity to wake up.
And what was your practice to...
How did I choose my practice?
What was your personal practice to cultivate this life force, and how did you use it?
Yeah, so the main principle really, I'm gonna talk as a principle because the main principle is that in the usual sexuality we have all kinds of different tensions in the lower centers, from below the belly button to the thighs, the hips area, the PC muscles, and in the lower abdomen, the pelvic area. There are all kinds of tensions and resistances and contractions that are very subtle sometimes. Usually they are energetic, they are not even physical. And what happens is that with the sexual stimulation, it triggers these tensions and these resistances, and it gradually brings the nervous system to a point of extreme stimulation that feels almost too much, and that triggers a release, a dissipation of the life force. So the main idea is to release these tensions and these contractions, to becoming aware of them, to see that the sexual stimulation intensify and it feels good and I would like to intensify more, but instead of doing that, I'm going to release, I'm going to let it go, I'm going to surrender these tensions, which is going to create a space for this sexual energy that was there to start moving and accumulating. So instead of letting our usual blueprint of our body, mind, soul, and its tensions and the way it looks towards a goal and towards the future, towards reaching something through this stimulation, reversing that, just enjoying the sensation and releasing them, releasing the tensions that are at the base of the sexual pleasure. And so sexual pleasure doesn't dissipate, it doesn't disappear, but it changes. As we relax these tensions, the energy moves and it becomes more than sexual pleasure, it just becomes vibrations and it starts to flow. So for me, it has been playing with all these contractions that are in all these areas of my body, from the thighs all the way up, and relaxing, releasing, letting it go through a lot of presence and play, and and a strong will to actually choose to accumulate the charge, to vibrate more in the here and now, and to let go of the outcome in the future or the peak. Instead of looking for a peak, I want a more blissful permanent state. So a peak, it's not satisfying because it doesn't last. You're crashing after a peak. So if you understand that, it's easy to let go of the desire for the peak, because it's gonna give you 10 seconds, 1 minute of great satisfaction, maybe 10, with the release of hormones, but it's not gonna change your life in a way that it brings your state of being in a frequency of more. Right? To do that, you need to make the space and keep it and stay present with it and find satisfaction in that. So not looking for a peak, looking for a more intense now that is self-sustained. And it's given to us, like the life force is here, and it's up to us to give it more space in the here and now. And the sexual energy allows us to do that, to push more energy, more vibrations into our here and now. So that's what it wants to do. That's what it wants to do. It wants to increase, to make our life feel full. And I think that having actually a baby makes our life very much more full and meaningful in some ways. It's just that it doesn't need to be externalized through another human being that we hold space for. It can be internalized and make our own being in a state of more fullness. And yeah, so that's been my practice. It's just constantly challenging myself to hold more and to reconcile everything within myself, all the fears and negative sensations and emotions, connect them to the higher positive sensations, and amplify the whole spectrum of sensations, so that my body, mind, soul can hold more and more and more orgasmic bliss, because I think we all want to feel orgasmically blissful. It's just satisfying. It's just, we want to feel fulfilled. And it's here and it's now. The focus has to just be here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what was the result of doing that, of really cultivating this life force within you and expanding it and letting it flow? How did it reflect in your human life, in your real life, outside?
Well, yeah, it's at all levels, right? It reflected at all levels. But when I started that, I was a student in a business school, and I was not a very good student, and I was struggling to have the discipline to study, and my attention was very dissipated.
Mm-hmm.
So the first result was that I could focus much better on my study and become a much better student. So that was the first. But then it translated into so many other things. Mostly I've been focused on my inner being and my spiritual liberation and expansion, because that's my passion. That's what gives me the most. I've not been really focused on external achievements, and still I managed to manifest a multi-million-dollar business online, and before that have a great job and um, great circumstance, being free to travel all around the world. And mostly I think what it gave me is improved meditation, deepening my meditation and making meditation really blissful, not just something that I'm waiting for the end of the hour, right? But something where each moment is such a pleasurable state and expansion process. So yeah, it made me feel more satisfied,
Whole.
more
From
whole.
within.
Yeah, whole from within. Yes.
Yeah, and that's reflected in the outside, you know, because your
Yes.
inner world was completed.
Yeah, the way it reflected was mostly is I've been kind of less interested in the outside, because I lost the drive to make things in the outside, and more like focusing on finishing some work that has to happen in the inside. And there is so much that can be cleared and expanded and integrated in the inside, that this has been receiving my focus. So I'm not the best example in terms of talking of external achievements from the cultivation of sexual energy. Although I did have some achievements, it was not my focus. It was more like a secondary
But
consequences.
That's the trick.
Hopefully,
Right there.
hopefully, but some other people will say different things. They will focus more on the outside and make things happen from a doing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I was more in a being. And then what comes, what doesn't come, doesn't come. No need to rush or force things. But they came, they are coming in different ways, for sure. Yes.
And maybe
It's effortlessness, I would say,
Exactly.
is a big part. Things magnetize because you hold a higher charge,
Yeah.
and then it's not, you don't have to do anything. You just have to hold the charge. That's it. Yeah.
You become the magnet by just
Yeah,
being.
you attract the right people, the right circumstances, and the right thoughts and the right everything, that then open the doors and guide you to a life that is in a different state completely. And you can fully release the fears and the contractions and the beliefs of separation and of lack and of unworthiness, etc., etc., that were created by a fake state of separation from the life force, from the source of the life force. So ultimately, the greatest gift is that it reconnects you from where the life force even comes from, right? That's what matters.
And it's because you feel so fulfilled and full from within that you don't need to search for external fulfillment.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And then you just surrender into every present moment and let everything come that it's in alignment.
Exactly, but it's in alignment, and you're not trying to satisfy yourself from these external things that come. You're not thinking, oh, that's great, now it's coming, finally I will be able to feel this and to feel that. No, you were already feeling these things because you had such an abundance of life force in your system that it was there, that it was revealed and permanently sustained and established as a part of you.
But we could call this inner freedom because you actually don't have any attachments to any outcomes.
Yeah, but we don't need to talk in absolute terms because the reality of many people is that they still have attachments, and that's fine, and they don't need to let go of all attachment to start playing with the sexual energy to amplify their here and now, right? So we can talk about ideal and the goal state, but talking too much about the where it leads you can lead people. The trap is people can already want it to be here and now. And the trick with the sexual energy and the sacred sexuality is to make peace with the fact that we are frustrated, we are we don't feel fulfilled, we, you know, all these heavier energies, we feel hurt, we feel wounded, we feel unworthy, etc., etc. We feel lack and need. So the first step is to amplify these things with the sexual energy. It's not to repress them, push them away, and suddenly we are free from everything in bliss. So there is the work here where we use the sexual energy to first see what is there and not wishing it to be different. And that's an important step that people usually forget, right? We want to go from, okay, where I am to, oh, the blissful, sustainable, permanent state. No, first you just learn to enjoy the heavier sensations because you amplify that with the life force. You use the sexual energy to reveal the state of your soul as it is, not as you want it to be. If you try to shift your soul as you want it to be, you're going to repress all these heavier things, and you're not going to be able to repress heavier parts when you work with the sexual energy. That's why there are so many distortions with people who try to posture as spiritual in some ways, or they are in a spiritual leadership, or monks or priests, and they try to not have sex or to show that they are so holy. It doesn't work because it's a fundamental part of our being, and there is all the realm of heavy sensations, emotions, repressed, that need to be first amplified, brought into the light, celebrated, so that they can be integrated. And then, yes, it's gonna become bliss. Like even the pain, the sadness, the anger, the lust, it's all going to integrate into love and connect to love, and it's all gonna become one energy that's revealed as love, right? Even anger becomes love, even lust becomes love, even sorrow, sadness, despair, it's all. But first you have to go into these emotions and sensations. Despair, facing our deepest despair, our deepest feelings of rejection, like, yeah, separation of all kinds. Rejection is a deep wound. Being cast away, not being allowed as part of the tribe or society in one way or another. We carry wounds of that in our DNA, with memories of intense suffering and death. And all this has to come into the light, and working with sexuality allows to make us feel these things, amplify these things, because we cannot see their roots if we don't amplify them from the root. And the root is in sex, it's in life force, it's where we come from.
So love is the acceptance of all that is present within us here and now.
It's a beautiful I think there are so many ways to talk about love, right? Definitely there is an unconditional acceptance of everything, and it reconnects everything. It's at the center of everything. So I like this definition, or this this hint. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
yeah, maybe we could give some guidance to men or anyone how to walk this path.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's great to look into different courses and authors and see what resonates, which teachers we resonate with, which teachers we don't. Do we like the Taoist understanding, the Tantric, or both? And it's mostly experimenting. So it's listening to what I'm saying and starting to become aware. Oh, actually, where do I have tensions? When you are sexually aroused or sexually active in any kind of way, looking at these tensions and trying to feel yourself more, trying to see, oh, actually, do I have a choice here to let go of some tension? Is there something I can release? Is there something that can relax that usually does not relax, that tries to reach to somewhere, you know? Because we might understand intellectually, oh, okay, everything is here now, and I need to accept things as they are. But there are these deep programs in at the base of our being, that they want something else. They want a release of some kind. They want some to reach somewhere. So we need to reprogram them there. So you need to become aware of these places deep within. And every time you are sexually active or aroused, just pay attention. That's really what it is about. It's changing the quality of the attention that you bring in your body, in your energy. You can use the breath if it helps you. Usually the breath helps a lot. And in Tantra there are visualizations, there are prayers, there are rituals. There are all kinds of things that can ground the attention in a different way, in connection with the sexual activity or arousal. So play with what works for you, explore. I think it's not about just listening to one person, it's listening to yourself and to your own readiness to explore there. And then, yes, you will hear my voice, you will hear the voice of others, and they will all play a role in making your understanding and your perception more whole, and your readiness, your maturity to choose that is going to keep growing. And then it's happening. It's happening. The listening to this talk with interest is already the practice. It's already started, right? We don't need to separate it into, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to become open-minded, interested, resonating with the truth that I'm talking about, and feeling the call of, okay, now is the time to bring my life into a different frequency and to integrate my being into a different kind of wholeness. And then the practices, they will show up. You can invent practices. It's like there is limitless amounts of practices. There are thousands of teachers of these practices, but what it all comes down to at the end of the day is the quality of your attention turned within, to your body, to your sensations, to the root of your spine and all this area in your butt, in your glutes, in your pelvic floor, and all around there, a full release, a reconnection, an expansion, an opening. So with that, these words, with this understanding, you create the practices. You can invent things, but there are examples. So in Taoist practice, we learned, for example, to contract the muscles all around, from the knees up to the belly, the abdominals, the glutes, everything extremely intensely, several times, like once per second, and then release 1 second, contract 1 second, release, contract, release. And what that does is that it spreads the life force and opens some channels that might be closed. So that's an example. But there are all kinds of breathing that you can do that can help. And yeah, meditation, obviously, cultivating presence through meditation is a huge help. Yeah.
33 minutes and 33 seconds.
Cool.
So what I hear is step number 1 is to be fully present with your sensations, with the sensations in your body.
Yes.
That's step number 1.
It's step number 1, and it's it's the first and the last.
And that
it never stops.
Then we reach by being fully present, meaning in our bodies here and now, and meditation would be a tool.
Yes.
To reach that.
And talking to these pieces of ourselves that want some outcome. They know they want something, and you know they want something, and to own them and to guide them as if they were like little children. You take responsibility for them, and you say, you remind them, wait, there might be another way to reach to that satisfaction, and the other way is actually a surrender instead of a contraction and an intensification of the sensation from contraction. It's the opposite. It's a release, an opening, a surrender in the present moment. So there is a reversing that needs to happen in so many little parts, and it's connected to our mind, emotions. So we need to be super vigilant and see the patterns that are playing out to try to engage our energies in patterns of dissipating and projecting our fulfillment outside. So yeah, turning that energy, that attention within, and talking to our tensions, in convincing ourselves to surrender, to let go, and tasting the fruits of holding more charge, how pleasurable that can be. Like learning to find pleasure in the here and now, really. So yeah, that's the way, I guess.
Yeah. And having patience in the process.
Sure, for sure.
Playing.
For sure. The whole play is the point. It's everyone is at a different place in that journey, in that exploration, and it's about keep going and believe in it, believe in yourself, and give it more attention.